Hey there, we're back. It's UP Power with Kevin McNulty and Keegan Cooper. Good to be back.
Good to be back.
Took a little break. It's, summertime. We're enjoying it before football is here all of the sudden. Keegan's going to Packers training camp on Monday.
Should be exciting.
I can't believe we're already here. We'll do a little preview of the Lions Packers towards the end as we get into training camp, and then of course you have kind of a month to get through that and the preseason and everything before we're really talking NFL football, high school football. Of course, we'll be back soon. But with the local stuff going on here in the UP, it's been a lot of fun being out on the baseball diamond quite a bit. There's plenty of events going on throughout the UP, in the month of July because, man, we've had some great weather besides the flooding, at least in Marquette County yesterday. I hope everyone's doing all right. That was kind of a crazy weather we had this past weekend into Monday. But we'll start by talking about some Legion baseball. This past weekend in Kingsford, the Junior Association Tournament was a lot of fun, and the Post 44 White Diamonds come out on top on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it is the elite when you see these guys get out there. And when you look at a lot of those games, Kevin, that we covered and we saw over the weekend, it was close.
Yeah.
A couple walk-offs, had a couple extra inning games, and it was down to the wire. And then, the Post 44 White Diamonds get it done over Felch. And that was, I was there for that game. That game was kind of back and forth. One team gets a little bit going, then the other team comes back. And then down the stretch, an error here and an error there, and the White Diamonds come out on top.
Yeah, it's fun, and we're getting into states for not only Legion, but State Little League. We, of course, covered Marquette, District 11, hosting the major softball tournament July 4th weekend all the way until Tuesday. That one went. Marquette did a great job. Marquette Little League, District 11, making that happen. I mean, 3 UP teams, but the rest had be like 16 teams, I believe, that came up to Marquette. Spent 4 or 5 days, depending on how long they were alive in the tournament. But Marquette did a great job with that one. And then you think about District 10 down in the southern UP. Last week it was Norway. A little deja vu from back in the spring with their high school team going all the way. It was the major boys from Norway getting it done over Kingsford. That was an entertaining game, 12-5 in the end. Owen Kronik had a diving catch, highlight reel. Could have been SportsCenter top 10, in my opinion, to clinch that one for Norway. So they're going down to compete for states, and it's really cool to see some more UP baseball and softball teams. We just talked about the District 11 softball tournament, same thing for District 10, but going downstate, showing off a little UP power as well over the summer.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, softball, baseball continues to grow up here. Teams finding more success. And what I've enjoyed is seeing these kids and these young athletes grow over the last couple of years. Yeah. And, now they're finding that success. Maybe the first year it wasn't there, but now 2-3 years down the line of playing together and building that relationship, hey, now we're going to go compete for states and see what we can do.
Yeah, and I think we'll switch gears now. We have a couple of more tournaments going on this weekend down in Kingsford. Once again, the Legion baseball tournaments will keep going. Gladstone Escanaba hosting a big tournament before states for Legion comes to Marquette the following weekend, the last weekend of July. But we'll talk NMU hoops right now because, not only did Matt Makerzak elevate his longtime assistant Keel Gans to associate head coach, he came back to NMU last year. Of course, they had a ton of success being the GLIAC regular season champions, but well-deserved for Gans to get that gig as associate head coach. Casey Thousand made the same move with Jordan Sweeney being an associate head coach. It's good to see a lot of continuity with the staffs over there in Marquette. 2 teams that we really enjoyed covering a year ago. Expect them to be back to a championship level again next year.
No, yeah, and when you think about building a program and sustained success, right, it doesn't come with, a lot of change, right? So to have, these, head coach and now associate head coach in these elevated positions and these roles for a couple of years now, it's exciting to see, hey, this is now a firm foundation, and now we build upon that. And NMU men's and women's basketball has done that. We've seen them last year had success. We know that they're going to have success again this year.
Yeah, and when you think about it, men's basketball did have a little bit of change on their staff. Matt Mackersack bringing in John Michael Hughes from USC. He was a grad assistant. He wasn't an assistant coach. This is his first assistant coach job, but he's a younger guy who brings a wealth of experience. He was coaching Bronny James last year, and also I would imagine his experience going through a coaching change at USC. He was staying there, and then I believe this opportunity came up where he wanted to be an assistant, and Mackersack, brings him on staff. They're already out recruiting, down south where he's from. He played at High Point for Tubby Smith, national championship winning head coach. So that's kind of cool to get a guy with so much experience in D1, even as young as he might be. That will help and add to what Mackersack's already built at NMU.
Yeah, I think it adds a different, kind of point of view. He played at high level and has experienced a lot, and so he's going to be able to.
Also played at IMG with a bunch of future NBA players.
Yeah, so he's played with phenomenal players and played at this high level. So I think he'll bring kind of almost experience and reassurance of, hey, in these big moments, this is how you might have to compose yourself. This is how you might have to keep the stress levels low. So it'll be exciting to see the role that he plays this year for the Wildcats.
Yeah, it should be interesting. And on top of that, NMU made it official this morning, 3 guys that they added out of the transfer portal. We had heard that these guys had committed, but they're officially rostered now, that being Gerald Gittens Jr., Derek Merwick, and Julian Smith coming to Marquette from all over the country. Gittens Jr., originally from Brooklyn, New York, comes over from a University of Mary, another D2. And then you have Merwick from Elkhorn, Nebraska, coming from NAIA ball, where he averaged over 21 points per game. And Julian Smith, this is another guy we heard a lot of that, Mackersack, I think, first heard of when they were down in the preseason playing a tournament in Texas. So he was playing at Missouri S&T, which is D2. And these guys bring a lot, and I think it shows how seriously Mackersack and his staff took the transfer portal this season. Portal combat, was calling it. And they put it in the release, and, it could be a little fluffy a lot of times, but I take it as the truth that they were very meticulous about the guys they wanted to go in the portal and get. And as I alluded to, it deviates a little bit from what Mackersack has done in the past, that is recruiting, high-level high school guys out of the state of Wisconsin, where he's from, and has coached AAU and has been very familiar with high school basketball in that state. He's still doing all of that, but to be able to bring in guys out of the portal and use it to your advantage when, a guy like Max Weisbrod was ready to make the jump to D1, it shows that Mackersack is very flexible in terms of how he builds out a roster, and I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at these guys that he's brought in, they're all have the ability to score, and so that's just got to be exciting to look forward to. Is at any given time, one of those 5 guys can put up numbers. So it could be this guy's night, it could be this guy's night. It's going to be exciting to see maybe what changes they make to offense, offensively, what sets they go to run when you have shooters and you have guys that are
you have
dynamic
Dylan
inside.
Keel in the paint, double machine, and it's not going to be 15, 20 shots a night from Max Weisbrod because you don't have Max Weisbrod. So is it spread around a little bit more? Or do you have another prolific scorer in 2024-25 that will pick up that load, or will it really be spread around and going to Keel underneath? He'll still be putting up double doubles, I'm sure, very frequently. Slamming down dunks as well. But like I said, it's interesting that this team will look a lot different, but it will still have the identity of Wildcat basketball for sure.
It will, and it'll be exciting to see. If you ask me the best kind of
basketball.
basketball.
It's also impressive, sorry to cut you off,
no,
that
you're good.
There is an identity for Wildcat basketball at this point. Now 5 years into Mackersack's tenure as head coach, he has built something. The fact that I even said that says a lot about what he's done and the past 2 seasons, cutting down nets.
No, yeah, exactly. And the success that they've had in the GLIAC, I want them to make a run in the NCAA tournament, and I think it's only a matter of time before they find their way into the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 or Final Four, and then eventually, playing for a national championship.
That's the next Infinity Stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was 2 years ago, a big deal when they were down at Ferris, win the GLIAC tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, best team in the GLIAC during the regular season. Injuries really hurt them down the stretch, not only in the GLIAC tournament, which they hosted in Marquette as the champs of the conference, but then in the NCAA tournament, Weisbrod wasn't 100%. So that was a bummer to see, that they didn't have enough left in the tank to make a run in the NCAAs. I think you're right. That is totally on the table, and that's the next step for this program.
And when you look at the guys that he's brought in, it's definitely doable, right? I think the main goal should be keep everybody healthy throughout the regular season.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see, does Matt rest guys throughout the season, to
I don't think
preserve
that's
them?
his style, personally.
No, I don't think his style, but is it an option? Is it something that he maybe considers? Maybe.
But at the same time, Weisbrod was playing close to 40 minutes a night when they went on that, 13, 14-game winning streak in the middle of the season. That took a toll, and then you saw the injuries pile up. So maybe he plays that a little bit differently. I think he's certainly still growing as a coach, even though he's had a lot of success. He's not afraid of change. We've been talking about that right here. So it's interesting to see where they'll go. I know that men's basketball program just announced these portal additions. Same deal with women's basketball. Same deal at Tech, where men's and women's basketball are still kind of adapting to the new landscape of college athletics. So you get a lot of turnover, but if you have, a foundation in place and the style that you want to play, you can do it. You can turn over some guys every year and still be at the top of the league. I certainly believe they're a prime example of that.
And I know we'll have to wait, but I'm so excited for basketball season to get here for both the Huskies and the Wildcats and see what they do. We've now both seen, I've seen 2 seasons, you've seen a full season now. We kind of know their styles, and so it's going to be exciting to see maybe the changes that they make this upcoming season and how they kind of approach, do I rest guys? Do we play guys for 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
How do we stay healthy to get to the NCAA tournament and then make that run?
Yeah, I think with Tech men's basketball, we'll just touch on them. Don't exactly know what their full roster looks like, but with Tomaszek coming back, Dan Goretzka leaving, Tomaszek's going to carry a lot of the load. It's an interesting scenario. That's a guy you would compare it in terms of high-level scorer in D2, and especially in the GLIAC. He's right up there with Weisbrod, now going to be a junior. Curious to see how Josh Bittner, works with that, especially with a guy like Goretzka, who is their second leading scorer, now gone. Tomaszek's the guy, and he can score with the best of them. I think about that game up in Houghton the second time they played. No, that was actually their first meeting, where Weisbrod was hurt and Tomaszek took over in the second half. He's certainly capable of that, and I think we'll see a lot of that.
Yeah, and
next season.
I think for Josh Bittner, it's surrounding the right guys around Tomaszek, because I would say, every night he's going to give you 20 plus. He can. He has that ability. He might even be able to give you 30.
Yeah.
Sometimes 30, especially if he gets going, and we saw it. So it's, teams are now going to key in on that. They know the kind of player he is. So if there's a double team, who is Tomaszek going to be able to pass the ball to make that shot, or who's he going to throw it to inside that gets those 2 points for you? So it'll be exciting to see what they do.
And even before we get to see the basketball teams in action, we'll get to see some hockey both in Houghton and Marquette. We reported last week that Dave Shayak signed a 4-year deal, $312,000 per year, which is really, at the end of the day, on the low end for Division I college hockey. I wouldn't say he took a discount. I think it's really on par with where he should be as a CCHA head coach. But the fact that we know Shayak signs for 4 years and there's a potential to roll that over and extend it a year as he moves forward. You and I have talked about this, and last time we heard from Shayak was his opening press conference. Hopefully we get him on this podcast before the summer's out. Of course, he has to move his whole life to Marquette before we do that. But you and I have discussed this, that it makes sense that Shayak would want to retire as the Wildcats head coach. He's 57 years old, comes home. He's been a head coach before, and I'm saying coming home because he played here, won a national championship here, was an assistant here, coached at Alaska Anchorage, got that experience, and now this is his second head coaching gig. It's where he played. The athletic director, Rick Comley, he's familiar with. That's just what makes sense. So with his contract, 4 years being the initial term, a potential to extend it for another 6, that's 10 years, and that should really be the goal for Comley and NMU athletics, to maximize the next 4 years so that everything plays out where Shayak wants to stay here and has success, and maybe elevates the conference a little bit. To the point where there's 2 or 3 teams going to the NCAAs every year.
A little bit of separation is, I think, what the CCHA needs, because when you look at the standings last year at the end of it all, there wasn't much separation.
No.
There was 1 or 2 points between first and second, 1 or 2 points between second and third.
It's a conference that really cannibalized itself, with so many splits over the weekend. Very few 6-point weekends for a lot of teams. The only team that was really out of it about halfway through the season was Ferris, and they were on the wrong end of those 6-point weekends. So, yeah, you do need a little bit more separation. You've seen that a little bit. Bemidji has probably had the most success since the CCHA regrouped, and then Mankato and Tech have been playing there at a high level. Tech, of course, going to the NCAAs the past 3 years. So I agree with you, and the conference landscape, even today, changed a little bit because CCHA announced that Augustana will be a full-time member in 2024-25. That was not originally the plan. They will play a full schedule, be eligible for everything that every other member school is eligible for. So that brings it to 9 teams for the next 2 seasons, with St. Thomas still around. I like the move.
I do too. Well, I understand.
It's strange to see a change at this point when that wasn't originally the plan. The plan was to ease Augustana into the conference, now coming off their first year in Division I hockey. But at the same time, it also prepares you for St. Thomas exiting the conference, which they will do in 2026.
And I just think, and I understand when a new university joins a conference, there is this kind of period in which, hey, you're going to learn about the conference and the do's and the don'ts.
Which makes sense,
Welcome in, it is. At the same time, let's get them in there and let's let them play, and let's let these games mean something for not only the team in Augustana, but for all the other teams that are playing against them, Because when you play a team that's joining the conference but not in the conference, yes, those games still mean something.
It was a little strange,
But those games don't mean that much, right? You're not playing for points, you're just playing, and maybe it's exhibition, it's tune-ups. But now that they're in, Augustana has the opportunity to make some noise this season.
They were, looking at it right here, they were 7-2 against CCHA teams last year. So really on par with the rest of the conference, right?
Else.
They were 12-18-4 overall, but they would have been right in the mix in their first season. Their first season was very successful overall when you think about it. So now that they're coming in as the 9th team for the time being, the conference will use a point system to calculate percentages, which is important because the 9th team at the end of the regular season will be left out of the Mason Cup playoffs. They will not be participating. So
you don't want to be the 9th team.
No, you don't. And especially when you think about NMU heading into next year with all the question marks coming in to next season, with Shayak being a first-year coach, all the change in their roster that they experienced at the end of last season, and then again when Grant Patolny stepped down. that's a motivator right there. You don't want to be the 9th team.
Yeah, don't be the 9th team.
So I think that's a goal in and of itself, is to avoid that, get into the Mason Cup playoffs, and see what you can do.
I think that's a great goal for Northern Michigan is, with all the turnover and changes, is don't be the 9th team.
They're probably
going
to be picked 9th.
They're probably going to be picked 9th, yeah. They probably will.
So prove everyone wrong.
Yeah.
That's not the worst place to be.
No, be the underdog, make it to the Mason Cup playoffs, and let's see what happens, right? I love this quote, and I can't remember who said it, but on any given night, anybody can beat anybody, right? It's
true.
3 periods of hockey. It's finding a way
They say any given Sunday in the NFL, but it's any given Friday and Saturday in the CCHA. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the key is, and we've talked about this before, you got to find a way to come away with 6-point weekends. You can't necessarily split.
Because if you stack those, it goes a long way, and you're putting yourself ahead of. Easier said than done, but you're absolutely right. If you end up doing that 3 times, you're going to be in the top 1, 2, 3 at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, 3 or 4 6-point weekends, you could be the top seed in the CCHA.
Probably would
right?
be.
Probably would be, right? It's okay if you get 5. It's okay if you split, but you got to get. You have to get. I would say 35% of your conference games you need to be sweeping if you want to have a number 1 or number 2 spot in the Mason Cup playoffs.
Yeah. I would. Maybe we'll have to go back and look how many sweeps there were.
Yeah.
I don't in the conference last year. I don't know if there were double digits.
No, I'm gonna say there were 8 sweeps.
We'll look that up.
We'll look it up.
And we'll talk about it next week.
Next week on the podcast.
On the podcast, because it was very few, as we mentioned. So many splits, so many ties. These teams are so evenly matched. That's good. It's competitive, but at the end of the day, when you're trying to stack yourselves up against the NCHCs and the Hockey East and the Big Ten, it kind of puts you behind the 8 ball. So if there's some sort of change there, it'd be interesting to see. But that's the big news on this Tuesday. CCHA announcing, you know what? Screw it, Augustana, you're in. You played well last year. I like the move too. Yeah. I understand easing them into the conference. But at the end of the day, you also have to be prepared for St. Thomas to leave, which when they announced Augustana was coming in, that wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
So now with the Tommies heading out, just bring Augustana in.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. They're full members this upcoming season, and also means one team will be left out of the Mason Cup playoffs, which wasn't originally the plan. Switch gears. It's the MLB All-Star break, so it's that 3 or 4 days in the 365-day calendar where no professional sports are going on. But we did have the home run derby last night. Teoscar Hernandez of the Los Angeles Dodgers, 31 years old, an older guy in the field. I guess Pete Alonso was out there. Pete Alonso, 2-time derby champ, bad performance last night. I wasn't too upset to see him kind of stall out. I think he really takes the derby really seriously, and didn't go very well for him on Monday night. But for Hernandez, he just kept hitting enough. Yeah. And the new format I liked. 3 minutes, 40 pitches, pretty similar to what they've done for the past 10 years or so in the derby with the clock. But the bonus round was fun because you saw a couple of guys, it's 3 outs, turns to 4 outs if you hit one more than 425 feet. You saw a couple guys end up with 7 or 8 extra home runs in that bonus round because they were hitting a couple in a row. And I thought it was fun. It was good. Bobby Witt Jr., the runner-up, it was a little bit of a dud for a lot of it. A lot of right-handed hitters.
Yeah.
You saw a little bit like the CCHA. Everyone was hitting around 20 home runs. It was hard in the new format to separate yourself, but by the end of it, when we got to the finals, Hernandez barely took down Alec Boehm, who was the bottom favorite, least favorite to win because he only had 11 home runs in the first half of the season. He had a great opening round. He was the first one to go, hit 21 in the first round. He let that one slip away, so all of a sudden Hernandez is in the final, going up against Bobby Witt Jr., the young star for the Kansas City Royals, who I love watching. I know Royals fans were probably, hoorah, that's our guy, you know, as opposed to Dodgers fans. Hernandez is probably, their fifth or sixth best position player, just because it's the LA Dodgers. But at the same time, he did enough. He went first, and we had drama at the end where Bobby Witt, in the bonus round, stacked a couple more, and he was chasing 14, so he gets up to 13. He swung at a pitch that he should not have swung at.
Yeah.
And then on the very next one, WTP, warning track power, hits the base of the wall.
Yeah.
And I thought it was gone. He hit it to the wrong part, really, because it was out in left center. If he yanked that a little bit more, it's gone. And, well, he would have had a chance to hit another one and win, or we would have had a swing off to determine the champion. But, of course, WTP, not good enough. And Teoscar Hernandez, the Derby champion. It was fun in the end.
It was fun, and, you know, people talk about, it shouldn't be difficult. It's difficult to get up there and take 40 pitches and try to hit them out.
Look at Gunnar Henderson has 28 homers. A lot of them line shots, out to right field in Camden Yards. But he got up there. He didn't hit a home run for his first minute. He was just hitting singles, doubles. In the home run derby, you can't do that.
Take a BP.
So he was chasing the rest of his round, and he didn't even advance to the semifinals. But you're right. That's a prime example of a guy. He has 28 homers at the All-Star break, and he got up there and got off to a bad start and couldn't recover.
It's about finding that rhythm, right? And, when you only have 3 minutes and you only have 40 pitches. I think Hernandez
did a really good job of that because he was taking big old hacks as opposed to a guy like Marcell Ozuna. Now, really, Adolis Garcia, the hometown guy of the Texas Rangers in his home ballpark, he wasn't even stepping. He was flat-footed and just used raw power to punch him out. Hernandez was swinging out of his shoes quite a bit.
He was giving it everything he got, which it's a
There's
home run
different
derby.
strategies,
I mean, if it's me and I'm in a home run derby, you may get tired, but, I'm swinging as hard as I can, right? Because you want that. I think the thing about the home run derby for me has always been the wow factor of watching these athletes show off their power and watching these, 425, 450, like actual bombs. Guys hitting it to the, second deck. Guys hitting it.
Saw a lot of those to the Texas ballpark.
So it's difficult, and finding that rhythm and, staying consistent with your swing discipline. There's so many factors that go into that. You add the time that you only have 3 minutes. You only get 40 pitches. What pitches do you not swing at? I think it was cool, for the home run derby to always see the relationship between the guy that's throwing for you and the hitter. I think
that's what really hurt Alonso. I believe it was the same pitcher who was out there for his Derby championships in the past. They were not on the same page last night, and that hurt him.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Like, my pitch has always, if I was hitting, my pitch has always been middle in because I'm a left-hander.
Right.
So I can pull it down the line, throw it in that right center field gap. You got to be on the same page.
If you got 3 minutes, 40 pitches, would you get one out?
In a major league ballpark?
Yeah. I'll give you a metal bat.
Yeah.
You get at least one?
I may not get one out, but I'll hit the fence in the air.
Okay. I haven't taken BP in a while.
Middle in, and pull it down the left field line. Okay. How far is that Texas right field line? How far is it?
Right field, I don't know. I believe left field is 326, but then it juts out like a lot of ballparks do. I'd be in the same boat. I would be going right for the foul pole.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that would be my strategy. Shortest distance to success.
Yeah. You wouldn't get the bonus. You would not hit one 425.
No. If we were in a high school park, definitely. 3 minutes, 40 pitches. Yeah. I could definitely in a high school park.
All right, we'll see you at the TV6
TV6 home run derby. We should do that.
But it was fun. Of course, we have the All-Star game coming up Tuesday night, a couple hours here when we're recording this. For the Tigers, Tarek Skubal not getting the start, despite really having the best numbers of any of the starters in the American League. Corbin Burns, former Brewer, is getting the nod from the Baltimore Orioles. Bruce Bochy is the AL manager, of course, 4-time World Series champion. His reasoning, which I did understand, was that Burns has been an all-star 3 times before. He's been sniffing this. And his numbers are pretty comparable to Skubal. So I didn't hate it. I didn't like it for Tigers fans because Skubal has been the highlight for sure of the first half. And he has been the best pitcher in the AL. But Bochy's reasoning made a little bit of sense to me.
I think we'll still see him in the game. I think we will, but I read that
we'll
today.
See him, and he'll probably have another chance to start for sure in the future. And that was the other thing. Burns is more of a veteran guy than Skubal. So you'll see him out there, Tigers fans. Of course, Riley Green will also be in the game tonight. High draft pick once upon a time. I know that feels good to have one of those guys when Tigers were going through a really, really rough stretch for a while and accumulated a lot of those number 1 picks. And Green has lived up to it, certainly this season. So that'll be fun down there in Texas. And then the Brewers, Contreras and Yelich, the position players, all out there. We'll see some time. Obviously, a tremendous first half. Let's talk about the standings heading into the second half of the season. Brewers with you can check it out on ESPN. Brewers with a 4.5 game lead on the Cardinals at 55-42. Again, I'd be really shocked if they don't win the division.
True. Come on, St. Louis.
Stumbled a little bit, 3-7 over their last 10 into the All-Star break, so it came at the right time for them. As opposed to the Tigers, who were 8-2, had those 2 tremendous walk-off wins over the Dodgers, of course, one of the best teams in baseball at the end of the day. And they close out 8-2 over their last 10 heading into the break. Break came at the wrong time for them. But the wild card is in play for them, 3 games under 500 at the break.
I don't think the Tigers...
It's exciting to see the Tigers back into it because it's been an up and down year, but they have kept themselves around. They are 7 games out of the 3rd wild card spot heading into the second half of the season. So an outside chance, but at the end of the day, if they can't make a run at the wild card this season, there's encouragement, I think, with guys like Riley Green. Justin Henry Malloy has been really fun. That guy can run the bases. He can hit home runs. You start to figure some things out, and you have an ace now.
You have an ace.
In Skubal. So even if they can't make a run in the second half, they should be encouraged there in Detroit. At the same time, the division looks really good, and I don't think anyone expected that because Minnesota was your defending AL Central champions coming off of last year. They've played really well. They're in a wild card spot right now. Cleveland, best record in the American League. They're just constantly there. They keep going
every year.
Jose Ramirez, who was in the Derby Monday night, has been awesome. He's now one of their best players in franchise history because he's been so consistent for so long. So they're at the top of the division. Best record in the American League, really a half game better than the Orioles at 58-37. And the Royals were a really big surprise in the first half. They're 52-45, 7 games over heading into the break. So the division looks great. We won't talk about the White Sox, but they added another pitcher on Sunday, a 5th overall. The White Sox pitching for the future at least looks good. So maybe in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years they'll be good again. I don't know. But for now, they don't really have to worry about that. I think for the 2 teams we talk about most, the Brewers and the Tigers, the first half was pretty entertaining.
It was, and I think like you said, the Brewers should have no problem winning their division. me being a Cardinals fan, maybe I hope that the Cardinals make some noise and make it a little interesting.
They're
down the
hanging
stretch.
around.
They
They
are.
have played really good baseball over the past month or so. Then, of course, the Pirates are 500. So they have their ace of the future like the Tigers do in Paul Skeens, who will
Yeah.
get the start Tuesday night. That is going to be theater. He gets the nod over Chris Sale, who's a guy I'm really happy for, that he's kind of resurrected his career in Atlanta after dealing with so much. After winning a World Series in Boston in 2018, he was injured so much, and now at 35 years old, was the next guy. If it wasn't Skeens, it was going to be Chris Sale starting another All-Star game. He did start in San Diego in 2016, so Chris Sale has had a great first half. It's really exciting to see for me, but yeah, next man up, Paul Skeens has been awesome. And last week in Milwaukee, 7 innings, no hit ball. Of course, he threw 99 pitches. Do you want to talk about that discourse?
Yeah.
Of, do you take Skeens out of the game? I didn't want them to, but I understood it because this is your franchise pitcher.
Yeah.
He's probably going to blow out at some point. I heard Chris Sale talking about this. He blew out his elbow, had Tommy John, and now he's back. And you pretty much, this day and age, expect power pitchers, a guy like Paul Skeens, who's pumping 101 on a regular basis, that at some point that injury is going to
It's
come.
going to happen, yeah.
But if you're the Pirates, you don't want to force that to happen this
Early.
year by trotting him out there for 125 pitches to get a no-hitter. He wasn't perfect. He had a no-hitter going. I understood it, but I did want to see Skeens go out there for the 8th.
Yeah, it's tough. I think, if I'm a general manager and my ace, my future,
10, 15 years ago, we're not having this conversation. He would have gone out there for the 8th. Probably gone
and
out there for the 9th. And either we'd be talking about the Paul Skeens near no-hitter or his dominant no-hitter, because even though he wasn't perfect, he was darn near perfect.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like when you're talking about a no-hitter versus perfect, I think, and this is just me, the chance to throw a perfect game doesn't happen often.
No.
So if he was perfect,
20 times in Major League history.
yeah, if he was perfect at the end of the 7th, I'll ask him how
Without
he feels.
a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt, he's got to go.
No hitters, still impressive, right?
Yeah.
Still very impressive, but not, like you said, 20 times in the MLB. That's when you send him, right? Because that's a moment that, and even if he goes out there,
it may never
happen. Yeah,
again.
even if he goes out there in the 8th and the first guy he faces hits a single, he's gone. Your day's done.
My very best baseball memory will probably never be topped. It happened when I was 8 years old. I was at Mark Burley's perfect game on the south side of Chicago. Thursday afternoon in July, actually, we're coming up on the 15-year anniversary of that. Incredible, because you never see it. On that Thursday afternoon, it was a getaway game against the Tampa Bay Rays, and it's the greatest baseball memory I'll have because it is so rare.
Yeah,
And it's so cool. It's still talked about in Chicago all the time, even though that White Sox team wasn't all that good, didn't make the playoffs, but the highlight of the season
was that, yeah.
was that perfect game. I will never forget it. So you're right. There's a huge difference between a perfect game and a no-hitter. I still wanted to see Skeens go for it. I get that they didn't, want to risk it with his arm at such a young age. So I understand that, and I'm also glad that the Pirates relievers gave up the no-hitter, so we weren't talking about a combined no-hitter where it would have been worse, where it's that's all Skeens and, just forget it.
I know they have those
It was a great
things.
outing.
I know they have the combined no-hitter, but I don't like that term.
That's what has made no-hitters a little bit less interesting for me.
Yeah. A no-hitter to me is one pitcher, all innings, and, you get no hit, You bring in another guy, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't mean the same.
Doesn't mean the same thing.
Because then it's not an individual accomplishment.
It's now.
It counts as a no-hitter, sure,
but yeah, yeah. And I think you could even say that on you make that comparison at the high school level, right? They play 7 innings. Do you keep a guy in if he's throwing a perfect game? Yes.
Yeah.
No hitter.
Nico Burgoon of Iron Mountain threw a perfect game this past year.
probably you keep them in because they're going to throw. Hopefully, they're going to throw less pitches. They're not throwing hopefully as hard as an MLB pitcher is. I mean, I know some guys that we've seen this year are throwing upper 70s, touching 80s, maybe even higher than that. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. But that, it's a tough call, right? Because you may experience something that never happens again. But at the same time, you don't want to risk injury, especially at a young age at the high school level.
Oh, for sure. All right, let's wrap up the NFL. We alluded to it at the top of the podcast, but we are less than a week away from the opening up of Packers training camp in Green Bay. Obviously, Packers fans have a lot of reasons to be excited after last year winning a playoff game, heading to the divisional round, and having a chance to beat the NFC champs and the 49ers in that game. Didn't work out that way, but 6 days away from you heading down there to Green Bay to open up training camp. We'll hear from Matt LaFleur. I'm sure we'll hear from Jordan Love in the locker room as well. Let us know. First of all, I'm going to ask Keegan, what are your big question marks heading into this Packers season? Hit us up on social media because that's what I don't think they have many. The kicker is a big question mark. They signed Greg Joseph from Minnesota, and Anders Carlson is still around. He was shaky last year, but Packers fans have been through that with an all-time great kicker in Mason Crosby, who was shaky for a couple years of his career, but other than that was lights out. So are you sticking with Anders Carlson? Are you sticking with Greg Joseph? But that's special teams. That's kicking. It's important, but I think my big question mark, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is how different is the defense going to look under Jeff Hafley? Because that was a weak link for them. Yeah. Even in Jordan Love's first year as a starter, he hit a rut in the middle of the season, but overall he was outstanding, and that's why he's going to get paid and stay as the starter in Green Bay for likely a long time. So I want to know what's different about this defense under Jeff Hafley, of course, coming over after being the head coach at Boston College.
I think it has to look different, right? When you look at last year and the points that they allowed and kind of I won't say mistakes, the mishaps that they had on the defensive side of the ball, it has to look different. Now, is that formation? Is that...
It was a lot of breakdowns in coverage, and they weren't blitzing a lot, which I think what was the big issue. It's like, okay, you're not being aggressive, you're not going after the quarterback, you're not sacking the quarterback, then why are your teams breaking free for a 30-yard pass on you,
I think it has to be. I think they're going to, like you touched on, I think they'll have to blitz. So you have to put pressure on the quarterback. Even if you only send one or two guys off the line, I think they got caught a lot of times on their heels, right? They weren't, because they weren't blitzing. So I think maybe you do that a little. Not all the time, right? Because you know that you're going to face teams that have guys that are going to just, take off from the line of scrimmage and run 60 yards down the field, and whoever you're playing, they're an NFL quarterback. They have the ability to throw the ball that far. So it's going to look different. I think they have to add some blitzes in there, maybe some switches. Also,
and Hafley said that when he was introduced, we're gonna be more aggressive. We're gonna we're gonna cover zero sometimes. we're gonna bring the heat.
And you should.
I like that. Yeah, and if that side of the ball is really shored up, and I don't know if the talent is exactly on par with other teams, even in the division with Minnesota and Chicago. But if they're together and you see a unit that works well together, I think it could be a lot better. And then for the Packers, you're talking about maybe being one of the best teams in the NFC next year because like I said, that was their weak link. So there's certainly a lot of potential on that side of the ball for Green Bay.
More intensity. I think they need to throw some blitzes in there, and I think they just need to get after people, right? Put the quarterback. I would rather be beat in a football game by putting pressure on the quarterback and the quarterback excels and just does something phenomenal than stand on my heels, not blitz, not send any pressure, and they're throwing bombs, 30, 40-yard, 60-yard bombs for touchdowns all day.
And I think Well, we've said this before. The NFC North is, I believe, a top 2 division in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's the NFC North and the AFC North, in my opinion. You think about the AFC North on paper, if Joe Burrow is healthy, you have Cincinnati, you have Baltimore, who went to the AFC Championship. You have Cleveland, which surprised a ton of people last year.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson's back at quarterback, so if he's better, then Cleveland is a really good team next year. And then Pittsburgh has question marks, but it's Pittsburgh Steelers. And they seem to get, around double-digit wins every season. Mike Tomlin, and they can get it done. Their question is at quarterback, which Russell Wilson are you going to get? So that's a really good division on paper. NFC North. You have the Lions making the NFC Championship game a year ago. Jared Goff was cooking all year long. You have the Packers winning a playoff game, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
You have the Bears with a rookie quarterback and a top 5 defense.
Yeah.
How good can they be? 7 wins a year ago. You imagine they will make some sort of jump. And then you have Minnesota with another solid defense led by Brian Flores, who should probably be a head coach again at some point. He likes to bring the heat quite a bit.
He does like to bring the heat.
He dials it up. So Minnesota is not a joke.
No.
And they have a great offensive mind. Kevin O'Connell is their head coach. So
And
you don't exactly know what you're going to get from any of these 4 teams, besides maybe the Lions.
Yeah.
Are the favorite to win it, but it's a really good division. They're going to beat each other up quite a bit. And Detroit, thinking about their offseason, they start training camp on July 27th, so about 5-6 days later than the Packers. They paid everyone on their offense, meaning Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, and Penei Sewell. Those guys are going to be Lions for a long time, and you saw how well it worked a year ago. I expect more of the same heading into next year. And then their first 2 draft picks were defensive backs. A huge need. After last year, you saw that was their big weakness. Not all that different from the Packers. It was specifically the secondary for Detroit. So Terrion Arnold out of Alabama is their first-round pick. We'll get our first look at him in a couple of weeks at training camp. Of course, he was there for mini camp and OTAs as well, but training camp's different when these guys are wearing pads and not running around in shorts and everything. So the Lions as well. Talking about the Detroit Lions being favorites in the division, we knew they had the potential to be really good last year. They were really good. They won the division, went to San Francisco for the NFC Championship. But if that's better, you have a ton of continuity on the offensive side of the football. The Lions are the cream of the crop in the NFC, right there with, of course, the team they lost to on the final day of NFC football a year ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it'll be exciting to see this division and see how it plays out, right? You've got arguably some of the top young quarterbacks in the NFL and some of the top, I would consider Jared Goff somewhat of a veteran quarterback now. He's had experience.
Absolutely is, yeah.
It's going to be cool to see the battle between, all of those quarterbacks.
Contain my excitement. I think most of our viewers know I grew up a Bears fan, love covering the Lions and Packers too, but most of all, this division is really, really, really exciting.
I'll just silently cheer for the Chiefs over here. No one heard that, hopefully.
That's fine. It's not hard to root for the Chiefs because you just know in the playoffs you're probably going to win.
Probably going to win.
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
Which is what happened a year ago.
That famous line from Patrick Mahomes. People thought we were rebuilding. And then he holds up the...
Yeah, they rebuilt throughout the entire regular season. And they look terrible.
Yeah.
They lose to the Raiders under an interim head coach on Christmas Day, and people are like, no, they can't. They can't even sniff the Super Bowl this year. Are you kidding? And then they,
And then they do. And they do, yeah.
Is it? They're a dynasty.
Is it just now that the expectation
I think I heard a lot of Patriots fans saying they really remind me of the Brady Patriots. Especially like the second half of Brady's Patriots career where he added the 3 more Super Bowls. Not really. The beginning was, Brady being ushered in with a really good defense.
Yeah.
And then you had Randy Moss coming in. You had the greatest regular season ever, and, going undefeated until the Super Bowl. And then the latter 3 Super Bowls they won, it was like, oh, the Patriots can't.
You can't do it again.
You
and
can't.
They did, yeah.
And then they did. And that's kind of the feeling we had with the Chiefs last year. So thankfully for the Lions and the Packers, they do not have to see them on a regular basis. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
So is it who's playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year? Are they going to be back?
It should be. We
yeah.
should expect them to be in
to
the
be
Super
back,
Bowl.
yeah.
Why would we not?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that if I had to pick, it's Kansas City, and gosh, I don't know.
We'll make Super Bowl picks before the start of the regular season. We do have a long way to go, but it's fun to be thinking about football at least, and of course that means college football on top of high school football as well. We're only about 6 weeks this Friday. We'll be 6 weeks from our first Friday Night Fever of the season. So we're getting there. It's been fun to be out on the baseball diamond for the time being, but Packers training camp on Monday. Look forward to our coverage from down there, and then I'll go back to Green Bay to close out training camp. And they have a joint practice with another really good team, the Baltimore Ravens, before their preseason game against them. And, of course, the Packers will be the first team to play in a game in the regular season in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, against another really good team, the Eagles, who skimped into the playoffs last year. That's an interesting one to see, who the Philadelphia Eagles are this season, because that was a really disappointing finish last year. So we're getting close. We're getting there. We're having fun here on UP Power. Thanks for joining us. For Keegan Cooper, I'm Kevin McNulty, and have a great rest of your week.